A hospital room should be a sanctuary of joy, the place where life's greatest miracle unfolds. For Jessica Peterson, it was supposed to be the best day of her life. As she endured the final agonizing hours of labor, her husband Liam was just a few miles away. But he wasn't looking for parking or grabbing a celebratory cigar. He was in a 5-star hotel with her worst nightmare. This isn't just a story about cheating. This is a story of the moment a new life began and a marriage ended broadcast for the world to see on Instagram. What happens when the ultimate betrayal shatters life's most beautiful moment? The silence in the house was a living thing. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of a sleeping home. It was the tense, anticipatory silence of a held breath. Jessica Peterson felt it in her bones, a low hum that seemed to vibrate in time with the Braxton Hicks contractions that had been teasing her for a week. At 39 weeks and 3 days pregnant, she was a planet unto herself, with a tiny, restless moon orbiting within her. The nursery was her masterpiece, a testament to 9 months of planning, dreaming, and obsessive pinning on Pinterest. The walls were a soft, gender-neutral sage green. A hand-painted mural of gentle woodland creatures frolicked above a crisp, white crib. She and Liam had spent an entire Saturday assembling their laughter echoing in the small room. Every book on the shelf was curated, every tiny outfit washed in hypoallergenic detergent and folded into perfect squares inside the dresser. She would often stand in the doorway, one hand on her burgeoning belly, and just look. It was a room full of promises. Anything yet superstar. Liam's voice from the living room broke her trance. He walked in, smelling faintly of the expensive cologne she'd bought him for their 2nd anniversary, and the faint electric scent of his work laptop. He was handsome in that effortless, clean-cut way that made other women's eyes linger a little too long. Dark, impeccably styled hair, a jawline that could cut glass, and the kind of charming, easy smile that had convinced her on their first date that he was the one. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his hands over hers on the great curve of her stomach. "Lily is taking her sweet time, huh? Guess she's already a diva." They'd decided on the name Lily months ago. Lily Carter Peterson. It sounded like a poem to Jessica. "She's just making sure her grand entrance is perfect," Jessica murmured, leaning back against his chest. For a moment, the tension in the house receded. This was the picture. This was the dream she was building. A loving husband, a beautiful home, a daughter on the way. But lately the picture had felt off. A slight blurring at the edges she couldn't quite fix. It was in the little things. The way Liam's phone, once casually left on the kitchen counter, was now always screened down or in his pocket. The late nights at the office that had become more frequent in her 3rd trimester. He'd explained it away, of course. He was a senior project manager at a rapidly growing tech firm. They were closing a huge deal before his paternity leave started. He wanted to tie up all the loose ends so he could be 100% present for her and Lily. It made sense. It was logical. Liam was always logical. But it didn't soothe the unease coiling in her gut, an instinct she kept dismissing as irrational pregnancy hormones. "Speaking of work," he said, kissing the top of her head and releasing her. "I just need to fire off a few more emails. This acquisition deal with the Jensen Group is at a critical stage. I promise I'll be done in an hour. Liam, it's Friday night. I'm about to pop. Can't it wait until Monday?" "Babe, you know I wouldn't if it wasn't crucial. It's just this one person Chloe. She's new on the junior team, super ambitious, but still learning the ropes. I need to review her final draft of the presentation before it goes to the client Monday morning. If I don't, I'll be stressed about it all weekend, and you don't need a stressed-out husband when you go into labor. Chloe. The name had popped up a few times in the last month. Chloe Vance, the star intern turned indispensable junior associate. According to Liam, she was a workhorse, a real go-getter. Jessica had pictured a mousy, ambitious girl in a drab pantsuit fueled by coffee and a desire to climb the corporate ladder. Okay, Jessica sighed, rubbing her lower back. Just don't be too long. I want to watch that documentary about penguins. For the penguins, I'll move mountains. He grinned, giving her that $1,000,000 smile before disappearing into his home office and closing the door. Jessica waddled to the kitchen, the weight of the baby pulling her forward. She opened the fridge, staring blankly at the neatly organized shelves. A wave of loneliness washed over her so sharp and sudden it made her gasp. The silence was back louder this time. The only sound was the click-clack of Liam's keyboard from the other room, a rapid, almost frantic rhythm. It didn't sound like someone reviewing a presentation. It sounded like someone having a very private, very urgent conversation. She shook her head, angry at her own suspicion. She was being unfair. He was working hard for their family, for her, for Lily. She was just tired and sore and scared of the monumental event looming before her. Childbirth, motherhood. It was all unknown territory, a map with a giant "Here be dragons" scrawled across it. An hour bled into 2. The penguin documentary remained unwatched. She tried calling him, her voice soft. Liam, honey. No answer, just the relentless typing. She decided to take a warm bath to soothe her aching back. As she soaked in the tub, surrounded by the lavender-scented steam, she felt a sudden, sharp, and entirely new sensation. It wasn't the dull ache she was used to. It was a powerful, deep clenching that stole her breath. She waited. 5 minutes later, it came again, fiercer this time. This was it. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a mix of terror and elation. She heaved herself out of the tub, wrapping a towel around her body. Liam. She called, her voice trembling. Liam. I think it's time. The typing stopped. The office door opened, and he emerged, a strange look on his face, not of panic or excitement, but of irritation, as if she had interrupted something vital. The look was gone in a second, replaced by a mask of husbandly concern. Oh my God, babe. Are you sure? I'm pretty sure my internal organs are trying to stage a coup. Liam? Yes, I'm sure. And then, as if on cue, a warm gush of fluid ran down her legs, pooling on the hardwood floor. They both stared at the puddle, the undeniable, irrefutable proof. The held breath of the last 9 months was finally released in a rush. Okay, he said, running a hand through his perfect hair, messing it up for the first time all day. Okay, hospital bag, car keys, your birth plan. It's go time. As he rushed around, grabbing the meticulously packed bags by the door, Jessica's eyes fell on his phone, which he'd left on the coffee table in his haste. The screen lit up with a new notification. It wasn't an email from his boss or a calendar reminder. It was a WhatsApp message from a Chloe V. The preview was short, but it was enough. Thinking of you. Can't wait for later. The winking emoji felt like a physical blow. Later. What was happening later? Her contractions were 7 minutes apart. Their baby was coming. There was no later that didn't involve a hospital and a newborn. You ready, sweetheart? Liam was at the door, holding it open for her, the perfect concerned husband once more. Jessica looked from the phone screen to his smiling face. The pieces were all there, scattered and sharp, but her mind, clouded by pain and panic, refused to assemble them. It couldn't be. Not now. Not tonight. She was just hormonal, paranoid, misreading things. She had to believe that. Ready, she whispered, taking his hand and walking out of the home that suddenly felt like it belonged to a stranger. The fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor were harsh and unforgiving, stripping the color from everything and casting long, sterile shadows. Every scent was amplified, the sharp tang of antiseptic, the faint metallic smell of sickness, and the institutional aroma of floor wax. For Jessica, it was a world away from her serene, sage-green nursery. They checked her into a private labor and delivery room, a small beige box dominated by a formidable-looking bed and a symphony of beeping machines. A kindly middle-aged nurse named Maria had hooked her up to monitors, one for her contractions and one for the baby's heartbeat. The steady rhythmic thump-thump-thump of Lily's heart filled the room, a tiny drumbeat of hope against the rising tide of Jessica's pain. Liam was playing the role of the doting husband flawlessly. He held her hand through each contraction, his thumb rubbing soothing circles on her skin. He offered her ice chips. He whispered encouragement. "You're doing amazing, babe. You're a warrior." But his eyes kept darting to his phone. Between the waves of pain, Jessica watched him. He'd angle his body away from her, his shoulders hunched as he typed furiously with his thumbs. A small, tense smile would flicker across his face, a private, secret thing that wasn't for her. "Is that work?" she managed to ask. Her voice strained as a particularly intense contraction subsided. He flinched, snapping his phone face down on the small bedside table. "Yeah, just Chloe. She's in a panic about the presentation. I told her to handle it, but you know how she is. A worrier." He forced a laugh. "Don't you worry about it. All my focus is right here." He leaned in to kiss her, but his eyes didn't meet hers. The kiss was brief, a ghost of a touch on her forehead. The coil of unease in Jessica's gut, the one she'd been suppressing all night, tightened into a cold, hard knot. The WhatsApp message. "Can't wait for later." "Liam," she said, her voice small. "Can you please put the phone away? I need you here. With me." "Of course, babe. Of course." He slipped the phone into his pocket, but it was like a part of him went with it. He was physically present, but his mind was a million miles away, and Jessica had a sickening feeling she knew exactly where. An hour later, as her contractions grew stronger and more frequent, he stood up abruptly. "Shoot. I am the biggest idiot on the planet." Jessica looked at him, her face pale with effort. "What is it?" "The car seat. The infant car seat. In all the panic, I forgot to transfer it from my car to yours. They won't let us leave the hospital without it." He smacked his forehead with the palm of his hand in a gesture of theatrical frustration. "My car is still at the house. I have to go back and get it. I'll be so fast you won't even know I'm gone." Nurse Mariah, who had just come in to check her dilation, frowned slightly. "She's progressing quickly, Mr. Peterson. You might not want to be gone for too long." "I'll break land speed records," Liam promised, already inching toward the door. "I'll be back before you can say epidural." He blew Jessica a kiss. "I love you. Be strong." And then he was gone. The door swung shut behind him, leaving a void in the room. The silence was heavier now, punctuated only by the beeping machines and Jessica's ragged breaths. "Men," Maria said with a sigh, adjusting Jessica's pillow, always finding a reason to flee the scene of the crime. "Do you want me to call your mom? Or a sister, maybe?" Tears pricked Jessica's eyes. She felt so utterly, terrifyingly alone. "My sister," she choked out. "Her name is Sarah. Can you call her for me?" Liam didn't drive home. He sped past the turnoff to their quiet suburban street and headed downtown, his heart pounding with a different kind of adrenaline. It was a vile, exhilarating mix of guilt and anticipation. He was a terrible person. He knew it. But the knowledge was buried under layers of self-justification. He was suffocating. The perfect house, the perfect wife, the perfectly planned baby. It was a life he was supposed to want, a box he was supposed to check. But it felt like a cage, and Jessica, with her lists and her plans and her expectations, was the gentle, well-meaning warden. Chloe was the opposite. She was chaos. She was freedom. She was a 24-year-old with no plans beyond next weekend, a girl whose entire world revolved around Instagram filters and fleeting moments of validation. With her, he wasn't dad-to-be or husband. He was just Liam, the cool, successful older man who could buy her expensive dinners and make her laugh. He was a cliché, and he didn't care. He pulled into the valet parking of the Grand Meridian, a sleek, obscenely expensive hotel that glittered against the night sky. He sent a quick text. "I'm here. Room 12E08. He'd booked it last week under a false name. A just-in-case plan. A final indulgence before the rest of his life began. He had convinced himself it was a harmless pressure release valve. A last taste of the man he used to be, before he became the man he had to be. When he opened the door to room 1208, she was there, silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling window that offered a panoramic view of the city lights. She was wearing a ridiculously short black dress, her long blonde hair curled to perfection. She turned around, a wide, predatory smile on her face. "I was starting to think you weren't coming," Chloe purred, gliding towards him. "My wife just went into labor," he said the words, tasting like ash in his mouth. Chloe's smile didn't falter. If anything, it widened. "Oh my God. That's crazy. Is that bad? Like, should you be there?" "I have time," he said, pulling her towards him. "I told her I was getting the car seat." The lie spoken aloud in this opulent, anonymous room made it feel real. He had compartmentalized his life so completely that he could almost believe it himself. There was Hospital Liam, a good man, terrified and excited for his child. And there was Hotel Liam, a scoundrel seeking one last thrill. He just had to keep them from ever meeting. "Well, we better make it quick then," Chloe whispered, her phone already in her hand. "But not too quick to get a picture. The lighting in here is amazing." She wrapped her arm around his neck, pressing her cheek against his. She angled her phone, puckered her lips into a perfect pout, and snapped a photo. And another. And another. "You look so serious," she giggled, scrolling through the pictures. "You look powerful." He looked at the image over her shoulder. He saw a man with dead eyes and a forced smile, a man standing on the edge of a cliff. Chloe, however, was radiant, her eyes alight with a triumphant gleam. She tapped her screen a few times, her thumb flying across the keyboard. "What are you doing?" he asked, a sudden cold dread seeping through his bravado. "Just posting to my story," she said airily. "My friends are going to die when they see this hotel. Chloe." "Don't post it. Not with me in it." She pouted. "Why not?" "We look hot, don't be lame." She typed a quick caption. "Stolen moments with my favorite person." She added a tag for the Grand Meridian Hotel, then hit share before he could stop her. A notification dinged on her phone almost instantly. "See, Casey already loves it." Liam felt the floor drop out from beneath him. He had just lit a match in a room full of gasoline. The image, the caption, the geotag. It was a digital confession, a trail of breadcrumbs leading directly to his treachery. All he could think about was getting back to the hospital, deleting the evidence, and praying it was a fire he could still put out. But he was wrong. The fire was already raging. Back in room 3B of the maternity ward, Sarah Peterson had arrived. She was Jessica's younger sister, fiercely protective, and armed with a thermos of coffee and a bag of contraband snacks. She found Jessica pale and sweating, her knuckles white as she gripped the bed rails. "Where is that useless sack of skin you married?" Sarah asked, her tone leaving no doubt about her opinion of Liam. "He went to get the car seat," Jessica breathed. "He forgot." Sarah rolled her eyes so hard it was a wonder they stayed in her head. "Of course he did. A man's only job is to bring the bag and the car seat, and he failed at 50% of his duties. A new record." She settled into the uncomfortable visitor's chair, pulling out her phone to scroll through Instagram, a mindless distraction while she waited for the next contraction to pass. She scrolled past photos of friends' dinners, influencers' ads, and puppy videos. And then she stopped. Her blood ran cold. The phone felt heavy in her hand like a lead weight. The photo was unmistakable. There was Liam, his arm around a young blonde woman who was practically draped over him. It was a selfie, intimate and smug. Behind them, the city lights twinkled through a massive window, and at the bottom of the post, 2 small lines of text that sealed his fate. The Grand Meridian Hotel. Chloe Vance, Timmy 2. Stolen moments with my favorite person. The world narrowed to the 4 corners of Sarah's phone screen. For a full 10 seconds, she didn't breathe. It had to be a mistake, an old photo, a trick of the light. But there was no denying it. That was Liam's watch, the one Jessica had bought him. That was his stupidly expensive haircut. That was the strained, guilty look she'd seen on his face 100 times when he was trying to get away with something. And the caption, "Stolen moments with my favorite person." The casual cruelty of it, the winking emoji like a twist of the knife, was breathtaking. Sarah's first instinct was primal. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw her phone against the wall until it shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. She wanted to hunt down Liam and Chloe Vance and commit acts of violence that would get her arrested. But then she looked at her sister. Jessica was in her own world of pain. Her eyes squeezed shut, her body tense as another contraction crested and crashed through her. Her breath came in ragged, focused gasps. She was working. She was fighting a battle, preparing to bring a new life into the world. I can't tell her, Sarah thought, a wave of nausea washing over her. Not now. I can't. It will break her. It could hurt the baby. The decision was both the easiest and hardest she'd ever made. Her rage, white-hot and volcanic, would have to be contained. She took a screenshot of the Instagram post, a piece of digital evidence for a trial that would come later. Then she locked her phone. her hand trembling so violently she almost dropped it. She shoved it deep into her purse as if to physically bury the toxic information it contained. She had to compartmentalize just as Liam had. But her reasons were born of love, not betrayal. She created two Sarahs in her mind. There was the avenging angel, simmering with a fury that demanded justice. And there was the supportive sister, the labor coach, the calm anchor in the storm. For the next few hours, the anchor had to win. "You're doing so great, Jess," she said, her voice miraculously steady. She walked over to the bed and took a cool cloth, dabbing it on her sister's forehead. "Just breathe with me. In for 4, out for 4. Jessica's eyes fluttered open, filled with pain and gratitude. "Thanks for coming, Sar. I'm so glad you're here." "Wouldn't be anywhere else," Sarah said, the words catching in her throat. "I'm here. Not him. I'm the one who's here." The next few hours were a blur of agony and encouragement. Nurse Mariah became their steadfast general, issuing commands and offering quiet praise. Sarah became Jessica's voice, her hands, her everything. She held her sister's hand, her own fingers aching from the force of Jessica's grip. She fed her ice chips. She told her stories from their childhood to distract her between the relentless waves of pain. All the while, the screenshot burned a hole in her mind. Every time she looked at her sister's beautiful, contorted face, she saw Liam's smug grin next to that blonde girl. The doctor, a calm woman named Dr. Evans, came in. "Okay, Jessica, we're at 10 centimeters. It's time to push. You're about to meet your daughter." This was the final act. The pain became monumental, an all-consuming force that blotted out everything else. Jessica became a primal being, her body driven by an instinct as old as time. She pushed with a strength she didn't know she possessed, her cries echoing in the small room. Sarah and Maria were on either side of her, a chorus of "You can do it," and "One more. Jessica, one more." "Where's Liam?" Jessica cried out during a brief respite, her eyes wild and searching the room. "He's missing it. He's going to miss it." "Forget him," Sarah said, her voice fierce. "He's not the one doing the work. You are. This is about you and your baby. Just you." Now push the command, sharp and clear, cut through Jessica's panic. Sarah was right. This moment wasn't about him. It was about her. She bore down one last time, a guttural roar tearing from her throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated power. And then release. A sudden slick emptiness. The pressure was gone. And in its place a new sound filled the room, a tiny, furious, beautiful cry. "She's here," Dr. Evans announced, her voice full of warmth. "Congratulations, Mama. You have a perfect baby girl." They placed the baby on Jessica's chest, a small vernix-coated creature with a thatch of dark hair and flailing limbs. Jessica stared down at her tears of pain and exhaustion, instantly transforming into tears of overwhelming, earth-shattering love. Every ounce of pain, every moment of fear evaporated. Nothing else existed. Nothing else mattered. "Hi, Lily," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Oh, hi. It's you. It was you all along." She looked up at Sarah, her face glowing with a radiant post-birth euphoria. "Did you see her, Sar? She's perfect. She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Sarah said, her own tears flowing freely, now a mix of joy for her niece and a deep, sorrowful anger for her sister. They cleaned Lily up and swaddled her in a soft pink and white striped blanket. Jessica held her daughter in the crook of her arm, counting her tiny fingers, stroking her downy cheek. The room was quiet now, save for the soft coos from the baby and the gentle hum of the machines. The storm had passed, leaving a beautiful, fragile peace in its wake. It was into this sacred peace that the question fell. "Has anyone heard from Liam?" Jessica asked, her voice soft, still wrapped in the cocoon of new motherhood. "He must be so worried. He'll be devastated. He missed it." "Can you call him? I want him to see her." Sarah's blood ran cold again. The temporary peace was over. The other storm, the one she'd been holding back, was about to make landfall. She took a deep breath. She couldn't do it. She couldn't be the one to shatter this perfect moment. "His phone is probably off, Jess. Let's just enjoy this. Just the three of us girls for a little while." But Jessica's brow furrowed. The blissful fog was beginning to lift, replaced by the first prickles of returning reality. But why would it be off? He should be here. What if something happened? What if he was in an accident? The irony was sickening. The only accident was the one he deliberately created. Seeing the rising panic in her sister's eyes, Sarah knew she couldn't stall any longer. There was no good time to deliver bad news, but prolonging the lie felt like a betrayal of its own. Sarah began, her voice barely a whisper. She pulled the visitor's chair close to the bed. "Liam is not in a car accident. He's okay." "Then where is he?" Jessica demanded, her voice growing sharper, her protective motherly instincts now directed at her absent husband. Sarah couldn't bring herself to say the words. Instead, she took out her phone, her hands shaking again. She unlocked it and pulled up the screenshot. She didn't want to show it to her. She wanted to throw it into the sun. But it was the only way Jessica would believe it. It was the only way to cut through the excuses and the gaslighting that Sarah knew were coming. She held out the phone. Jessica looked at her, confused. Then her eyes dropped to the screen. The first thing that registered was the background. The glittering lights of the city skyline seen from high up. The second was the woman, blonde and beaming, her lips puckered into a smug little kiss. The third was Liam. Her husband, the father of the child she had just birthed. She read the caption. "Stolen moments with my favorite person." She read the location tag. The Grand Meridian Hotel. The color drained from her face. The radiant, euphoric glow vanished, replaced by a gray, waxy pallor. She stared at the screen for a long, silent moment, her mind trying to process an impossible reality. The man who was supposed to be getting a car seat for their newborn daughter was in a luxury hotel suite with another woman. While she was screaming in agony, he was smiling for a selfie. She looked from the phone to the tiny, perfect baby sleeping in her arms. Then she looked at Sarah, her eyes wide with a dawning horror that was more profound than any physical pain she had just endured. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just whispered one word, a sound so broken it seemed to crack the air in the room. "Oh." The O hung in the air, a fragile, hollow sound. For Jessica, the world had just tilted on its axis. The sacred, joyful bubble that had enveloped her and Lily popped, leaving behind the cold, sterile reality of the hospital room, and the garish image burned into her memory. She felt a strange, chilling calm settle over her. It was the kind of calm that comes after a catastrophic explosion, when the dust is still settling and the full extent of the damage is not yet known. She was a city in ruins. "Give me the birth certificate forms," she said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. Nurse Maria, who had been quietly tidying up, looked over, sensing the sudden dramatic shift in the room's atmosphere. "Honey, there's no rush on that. You just rest." Now Jessica insisted, her eyes hard as flint. "Please." Sarah retrieved the clipboard with the official documents from the counter. Jessica took it, her hand surprisingly steady. She clicked the pen. In the box labeled father's name, she wrote nothing. She moved to the line for the baby's surname. With precise, deliberate strokes, she wrote Peterson. Not Carter Peterson, not Carter, just Peterson. Lily Peterson. It was a quiet declaration of war, an amendment to the future. With a few inches of ink, she had excised him. Sarah watched, her heart aching for her sister, but also swelling with a fierce pride. In the face of the ultimate betrayal, Jessica wasn't crumbling. She was building a fortress. The quiet of the room was shattered 40 minutes later when the door swung open. In walked Liam, holding the infant car seat like a trophy. He was beaming, his face a mask of manufactured relief and excitement. He had clearly rehearsed this moment on the drive over. "I am so sorry," he began, his voice booming in the quiet space. There was a nightmare pile-up on the freeway. Total gridlock. I tried calling, but my phone died. Did I miss it? Tell me I didn't miss everything." He stopped short, finally noticing the atmosphere. The silence from Jessica. The murderous glare from Sarah. Nurse Maria suddenly finding a reason to check the IV drip with intense focus. His eyes fell on the swaddled bundle in Jessica's arms. His smile faltered, becoming uncertain. "Oh my God. There she is." He took a step forward, his arms outstretched. "Jess, let me see her." Jessica looked up at him. Her expression was utterly blank. It was more terrifying than rage. "You can see her from there," she said, her voice dangerously level. Liam froze. "What's going on? Babe, what's wrong?" He looked at Sarah, seeking an ally, but found only contempt. "Sarah, what is this?" Sarah held up her phone, the screen still displaying the damning photo. She didn't say a word. She just let him look. Liam's face went through a rapid series of transformations. First confusion, then dawning recognition. Then a sickly pale horror, as he realized the fire he'd started had already burned his entire world to the ground. The car seat clattered from his nerveless fingers, hitting the linoleum floor with a hollow thud. "Jess, no. It's not what it looks like." He stammered the words. Automatic, pathetic. "Really?" Jessica's voice was like ice. "Because it looks like you in a hotel room with a woman named Chloe. While I was giving birth to our daughter, it looks like you were taking stolen moments with your favorite person while my body was tearing itself apart to bring your child into this world. So tell me, Liam, what am I missing? What part of this picture am I not understanding?" It was a mistake, he pleaded, his eyes darting around the room, looking for an escape route that didn't exist. A stupid, meaningless mistake. I was stressed, the pressure of the baby of work. I wasn't thinking. "You were thinking," Sarah cut in, her voice dripping with venom. "You were thinking enough to book a room at the Grand Meridian. You were thinking enough to lie about a car seat. You were thinking enough to pose for a damn selfie. This is between my wife and me." "Sarah, Liam snapped, trying to regain some semblance of control. No, Jessica, said, her gaze unwavering. It was between you and her. Now it's between me and my daughter. The one whose birth you missed, so you could get a quick thrill before your life of suffocating fatherhood began. The word choice hit him like a physical blow. He stared at her, dumbfounded. It was as if she had read his mind, plucked the selfish justification right out of his soul, and thrown it back in his face. I love you, Jess, he whispered, tears now welling in his eyes. They were tears of self-pity, not remorse. I love our family. You don't get to say that word, Jessica said, her voice finally cracking, the raw wound of betrayal exposed. You don't get to talk about family. A family is built on trust, on respect, on showing up. You burned the foundation of ours to the ground for a cheap thrill and an Instagram post. She adjusted the sleeping baby in her arms. I want you to leave. What number, Jessica, please? Let's talk about this. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. There is no we to fix, she said. I will not raise my daughter in a home where I have to wonder where her father is every time he's late from work. I will not live my life looking at you and seeing that picture. I will not have my heart break every single day. You made your choice. You chose the stolen moment over a lifetime of real ones. Now you get to live with that. She looked at him one final devastating time. So get out. Get out of my room. Get out of my life. And don't you dare come near me or my daughter again. The finality in her voice was absolute. There was no room for argument. Liam stood there, his handsome face crumbling into a mask of pathetic desperation. He looked at the baby. His daughter, a stranger he had forfeited the right to know. He looked at Jessica, the woman whose heart he had just irrevocably shattered. He saw no forgiveness in her eyes, only an ending. He turned and walked out of the room, leaving the car seat behind, like a piece of forgotten luggage. The moment the door clicked shut, Jessica's iron composure dissolved. A great shuddering sob escaped her, a sound of profound and desolate heartbreak. She hunched over her baby, protecting her from a world that had suddenly become so cruel, her tears falling onto Lily's soft blanket. Sarah rushed to her side, wrapping her arms around both of them. I'm so sorry, Jess, she whispered, holding her sister as she wept. I'm so sorry. In the sterile beige hospital room, surrounded by the evidence of new life, Jessica Peterson mourned the death of the life she thought she had. The family she had so carefully, so lovingly built was now just a memory, and the future, once a bright and promising landscape, was now a terrifying unknown wilderness she would have to navigate alone. The first few weeks were a disorienting soup of exhaustion and grief, a surreal existence lived in the 3-hour increments between feedings, diaper changes, and bouts of uncontrollable weeping. Jessica's world had shrunk to the 4 walls of the nursery. At 3 a.m., with the rest of the world asleep, she would sit in the rocking chair, the soft weight of Lily against her chest, and the silence would be deafening. The physical ache of her recovery was a dull, constant thrum, but it was nothing compared to the sharp, serrated edge of the emotional wound. In these quiet, lonely hours, the paradox of her life was most acute. In her arms, she held the most beautiful, perfect thing she had ever known, and in her mind, the ugly, garish image of Liam's hotel selfie would flash unbidden. It was a constant, torturous collision of profound love and profound betrayal. Her parents had swept in, like a quiet, efficient army. Her father, a man of few words and decisive action, spent an afternoon grimly changing every lock on the house, the metallic scrape and click of the tumblers, a funereal sound that echoed Jessica's own internal deadbolting. Her mother filled the fridge with containers of soup and lasagna that Jessica had no appetite to eat, and took Lily for hours at a time, humming soft lullabies, so Jessica could shower or simply stare at a wall. Their presence was a silent, unwavering wall of support, a buffer against a world that felt too harsh to face. The house, once a sanctuary of promises, now felt like a museum of a dead marriage. Every corner held a memory, now hopelessly tainted. The armchair where they used to read together, his feet propped up on the ottoman. The kitchen where he'd made her pancakes on Sundays, always burning the first one. The bed they had shared. She couldn't bring herself to sleep there. She and Lily slept in the sage-green nursery now. It was the only room in the house that felt pure, the only one that belonged wholly to them, a tiny island in a sea of shared history. Liam predictably had launched a full-scale apology tour via technology. The barrage was relentless. Texts that began with Jess. "Please, I know I don't deserve it, but just let me explain." Long, rambling voicemails filled with choked-up self-flagellation and desperate pleas, his voice a sound she no longer recognized. He sent flowers, 3 dozen white lilies, an irony so cruel and tone-deaf it made Jessica feel physically ill. Her father intercepted the delivery at the door and deposited the entire ostentatious bouquet directly into the outdoor trash bin without a word. Then came the emails from his mother, Eleanor Carter. They were masterpieces of passive aggression, lamenting the terrible misunderstanding and reminding Jessica that all men make mistakes and that a child deserves her father, no matter the circumstances. Jessica's mother, after reading one over her daughter's shoulder, took the phone, her fingers typing with brisk precision. Her reply was a single devastating sentence, "Eleanor, your son made his choice. Now Jessica is making hers. Please respect that." The email stopped. A month after Lily was born, Jessica sat at her dining room table across from a woman named Catherine Shaw, a divorce attorney with kind eyes and a reputation for being a shark in the courtroom. "The Instagram post is your silver bullet." Catherine explained, her tone both empathetic and pragmatic. "In family court, infidelity can often devolve into a messy, he said, she said. But this, Jessica, this is a time-stamped, geo-tagged photograph of him with another woman posted publicly while you were in active medically documented labor. This isn't just cheating. From a legal standpoint, this is a portrait of character. It's an act of such profound parental abandonment and marital negligence that no judge will be able to look past it. He has no leg to stand on." The words were validating, but they offered little comfort. This wasn't a game she wanted to win. It was a war she had never wanted to fight. 2 weeks later, there was a knock at the door. Jessica's heart hammered against her ribs. She wasn't expecting anyone. Peering through the peephole, her blood ran cold. Standing on her porch was Chloe Vance. She looked different from her brazen Instagram photos. Smaller, younger, almost fragile. Without the heavy makeup, flattering filters and confident smirk, she just looked like a scared kid in over her head. She was dressed in plain jeans and a t-shirt, her famous blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Every instinct in Jessica's body screamed at her to turn and walk away, to leave the door locked and unanswered. But she was tired of running, tired of hiding. And some small, morbid part of her, the part that needed to see the story through to its absolute end, held her in place. She left the storm door locked, but unlatched the main one, opening a crack. "What do you want, Chloe Jessica?" the girl asked, her voice trembling slightly. I just wanted to apologize. Face to face, I was stupid. I was reckless and selfish, and I never ever thought... I knew he was married. I knew you were pregnant. But he made it sound like... Her voice trailed off. He said your marriage was over in all but name. A business arrangement. He told me you were just roommates, that you hadn't been intimate in over a year, and that you were just waiting for the baby to be born to separate amicably. The lies were so audacious, so complete that Jessica could only shake her head in disbelief. He had constructed an entirely separate reality, a world in which he was the tragic hero, the misunderstood husband trapped in a loveless cage. He told me he was in love with me. Chloe continued, tears finally welling in her eyes and spilling down her cheeks. He promised me a future. After the post went up, he fired me. He told his company I was an unstable stalker who had been harassing him for months. He ruined my career, my reputation. He cut me off completely, blocked my number, everything. He used me, Jessica, and he used you. I thought you should know, and I thought you should have this. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small silver USB drive. He used his work email to message me sometimes. He said it was safer, less likely to be seen. It's all in there. Everything he said about you. Everything he promised me. The hotel reservations. All of it. He's a coward. I know I can't undo the pain I caused you, but maybe your lawyer can use it. She carefully set the USB drive on the porch railing, a tiny silver piece of evidence. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am truly deeply sorry. I hope one day you and your beautiful daughter have a wonderful life. With that, she turned and walked quickly down the path, not looking back, leaving Jessica standing in the doorway, with the final sordid piece of the puzzle glinting in the afternoon light. She never looked at the contents of the USB drive. She sealed it in an envelope and just gave it to Catherine. The divorce was as swift and brutal for Liam as Catherine had predicted. Faced with an avalanche of undeniable documented evidence, his legal team advised him to settle immediately. Jessica got the house sole physical and legal custody of Lily and a child support agreement that reflected Liam's significant income. He was granted supervised visitation, 2 hours every other Saturday, at a designated facility, a sterile, joyless room where a neutral third party would watch him interact with his daughter. Jessica attended the first one, watching from behind a one-way mirror in an adjacent room. She saw Liam looking lost and broken, and smaller than she'd ever seen him, trying to coax a smile from a 3-month-old baby who regarded him with the placid indifference of a stranger. He looked up at the mirror as if he could feel her eyes on him, his face a mask of desperation. In that moment, watching him in his beige-walled prison, Jessica felt a flicker of something she hadn't expected. Not hatred, not even the cold fire of anger, but a profound and desolate pity. He hadn't just lost a wife. He had forfeited his life. He had traded a lifetime of first steps, first words, bedtime stories, and scraped knees for a single fleeting selfie in a hotel room. Months later, on a bright, crisp autumn afternoon, Jessica was sitting on a thick blanket in her backyard. The scent of fallen leaves and freshly cut grass filled the air. Lily, now a gurgling, happy 6-month-old, was lying on her tummy, her chubby legs kicking as she batted at a colorful toy. Jessica watched her daughter, this tiny, resilient human who was her whole world, the center of her new universe. The pain of Liam's betrayal hadn't vanished. It was a part of her now, a pale, silvery scar on her heart. But it no longer ached with every beat. It didn't define her. It was simply part of her story, the chapter that had to end for this new, better one to begin. Her phone buzzed beside her on the blanket. It was a text from Sarah. "Thinking of you. How are my two favorite girls?" Jessica smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes and made them crinkle at the corners. She aimed her phone and snapped a picture of Lily. Her face lit up by the golden afternoon sun, her mouth open in a look of pure, unadulterated joy. She sent it to her sister with a simple caption, "Having a perfect moment. With my favorite person." It wasn't a jab at Liam. It wasn't about him at all anymore. It was a statement of fact, a quiet declaration of her new reality. She locked her phone, lay back on the grass, and looked up at the vast, impossibly blue sky. The future was still an unknown wilderness, but for the first time in a very long time it was no longer terrifying. It was an open road, and she was free. Jessica's story is a brutal reminder of how quickly a life can be shattered by selfishness and deceit. But it's also a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit. She walked through the fire of the ultimate betrayal and emerged not unscathed but stronger, with the one thing that truly mattered, her daughter Lily. Her journey from heartbreak to healing reminds us that sometimes our greatest tragedies pave the way for our most profound strength. What would you have done in Jessica's shoes? How do you find the strength to rebuild when your world falls apart? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If this story touched you, please give this video a like. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And make sure you subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories of drama resilience and the incredible power of the human heart to overcome even the deepest wounds. Thank you for watching.